Have you ever noticed how a man starts to fade the moment he finally gets what he was chasing? At first he's confident, focused, alive. Then one day he's apologizing for things he didn't do, saying yes when he means no, and calling it love. Here's the part no one tells you: it's not her fault. It is what happens when desire quietly rewires your mind and your ego starts begging for approval instead of respect. Every man thinks he's immune until he isn't, until one text ruins his focus, until one argument decides his worth, until he realizes he's not leading anymore. He's orbiting. Stay with me, because once you see how that happens, you'll never lose yourself in anyone again. He didn't see it happening at first. No man ever does. It starts simple: a text you can't wait to reply to, a laugh that makes the rest of the world fade. You start rearranging small pieces of your life around her. It feels harmless. It feels like connection. But here's the thing. Connection has a way of turning into control when you don't know who you are. That's the quiet trap most men never notice until it's too late. Johnny Depp once said in an interview, "You don't realize it until you're already someone else." He wasn't talking about acting. He was talking about love, or at least what looked like it. A man who built his life on mystery and art ended up defined by chaos and noise. Every argument, every rumor, every public scene, his identity became a battlefield for validation. Not love, validation. That is the first way men lose themselves, when love stops being something they give and turns into something they try to prove. You see, most men don't chase women. They chase a feeling they once had about themselves: strong, wanted, alive. Somewhere along the line, they start using women as mirrors to find that feeling again. And that mirror always cracks. You can watch it happen everywhere, in friends, co-workers, even celebrities who once looked unshakable. Look at Will Smith, a man who spent decades building the image of control, discipline, and calm power, until that one moment on stage when emotion overran reason. It wasn't just about a joke. It was years of bottled identity confusion, the conflict between who he thought he was and who love made him become. Here's what's crazy. Most men aren't weak because they care too much. They're weak because they think caring gives them purpose. When love becomes your only purpose, you stop being someone and start becoming something useful, available, replaceable. It's not about hating women. It's about understanding that the male ego isn't designed to dissolve in emotion. It's designed to channel it. That's what men forget. Let's break it down. A man's ego, at its core, isn't arrogance. It's structure, the boundary that says, "This is me." When that boundary blurs, you start adapting your tone, your goals, your entire rhythm to fit someone else's moods. You stop asking, "What do I want?" and start thinking, "What will make her stay?" That's not love. That's fear dressed as devotion. Desire itself isn't dangerous. What's dangerous is when desire turns into identity, when every decision, every emotion, every quiet moment depends on how she sees you. That's when you start disappearing. Ask any man who's been through it, the signs always show early. He starts apologizing for things he didn't do. He stops spending time on his goals. He over-explains, over-analyzes, over-promises. Why? Because deep down, he's afraid she'll see the real him and walk away. And that fear? That's ego pretending to be love. You can't build respect on self-erasure. The truth is, attraction begins with individuality and dies with dependency. When you forget who you are, no one can be attracted to you, not even you. That's the brutal irony of it all. Men say they want love, but what they really crave is recognition, to be seen and admired as they are. But when admiration becomes the only oxygen they breathe, they stop being alive and start being addicted. Here's the part most people want to tell you: a man who knows himself fully can love deeply without losing himself. Because his love isn't a transaction, it's an extension. That's what separates strength from need. Some men think detachment means not caring. That's not it. Detachment means you know where you end and where someone else begins. It's emotional sovereignty, the ability to stand in love without kneeling in desperation. And that's exactly where the next part begins, because losing yourself in love isn't just emotional. It's neurological. Your brain literally rewires under desire. You start mistaking the chemical rush for purpose itself. When that happens, logic fades, patterns repeat, and even the smartest men, The ones who build empires find themselves at the mercy of their own biology. In the next part, we'll break that down, how your mind tricks you into surrendering your identity, how ego hides beneath passion, and how control quietly slips away. Because love isn't supposed to destroy you, but if you don't understand it, it will. Here's what most men don't realize: when you fall for someone, your brain doesn't just release dopamine. It starts reorganizing your priorities around that person. In other words, biology quietly edits your sense of self. That's not poetic exaggeration. It's neuroscience. Dopamine drives the chase. Oxytocin cements the bond. Serotonin makes you obsessive. Add ego into that chemical soup, and suddenly, love isn't a feeling anymore, it's a feedback loop. You start needing the person not because they complete you, but because they confirm you still matter. That's where the trap begins. The male ego thrives on control, not dominance control, the quiet confidence of being in command of your choices. But the moment desire enters the equation, that control gets outsourced. Now, how calm you feel depends on how fast she texts back. How confident you feel depends on how she looks at you. And how valuable you feel depends on whether she still chooses you tomorrow. That's not connection. That's emotional outsourcing. And the irony? You think you're choosing her. But the truth is, your brain is choosing its next hit. Elon Musk once said, "I'd rather be optimistic and wrong than pessimistic and right." It's a great mindset for business, terrible for love. Because optimism in relationships often means denial. When a man believes he can fix it, prove himself, or win her back, what he's really doing is bargaining with his own ego. He cannot accept that she is not choosing him because that would mean he is not enough. So he keeps investing, keeps chasing, keeps rationalizing, and every time he does, he loses a little more self-respect disguised as loyalty. Let's get honest. Men are conditioned to measure worth through impact. Work harder, earn more, protect, provide, win. So when a woman stops admiring you, it feels like an identity crisis. It's not rejection of love, it's rejection of validation. That's why even powerful men crumble over heartbreak, because when admiration leaves, so does their reflection. Jordan Peterson once said, "To love someone is to want what's best for them." But most men flip that into, "To love someone is to make them see the best in me." That shift from giving to proving is how ego disguises itself as devotion. You start performing your identity instead of living it. Here's the mechanism in plain terms. Ego seeks recognition. Desire promises it. Attachment cements it. Dependence destroys it. You keep chasing the same emotional high that first made you feel powerful, and the more you chase it, the more you need her approval to feel whole. That's why men stop noticing when they cross their own boundaries. The ego that once protected them becomes the leash that keeps them small. Now, society doesn't help. Modern culture celebrates sensitivity but confuses it with submission. It tells men to open up, but doesn't tell them what to do once they're vulnerable. So they swing between two extremes, the nice guy who overgives and the player who shuts down. Both are masks for fear. The first fears being unwanted, the second fears being exposed. The solution isn't to choose one mask over the other, it's to outgrow both. Real power lies in emotional discipline, the ability to feel deeply without drowning in the feeling. It's what ancient Stoics called temperance, what modern psychology calls regulation, and what real-world men simply call control. Think about Leonardo DiCaprio. People mock him for his dating habits, but look deeper. He's built a life where he decides who gets access, how long they stay, and when he walks away. You might not agree with his choices, but you can't deny the psychological principle control is clarity. He's mastered detachment without bitterness. And that brings us to the harder truth. Detachment isn't the absence of love, it's the presence of self. A man without self cannot love. He can only attach. When you know who you are, desire becomes a choice, not a craving. You can appreciate beauty without worshiping it. You can connect without collapsing. You can care without controlling. That's when ego returns to its rightful place, not as an enemy, but as a guardrail. It protects your edges, keeps you from melting into anyone else's reflection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Today that means, stop blaming women for your lack of peace. If she can control your emotions, You've given her what no one deserves. The steering wheel to your sense of self. In part 3, we'll go deeper into that idea. How to reclaim the identity you've given away, how to rebuild attraction through presence, and why true desire starts with self-respect, not need. Because the moment you stop chasing approval, something incredible happens. People start feeling your power again. Every man who's lost himself in someone eventually wakes up the same way quietly, and usually alone. Not in rage, not in heartbreak, in silence. You wake up one morning, look in the mirror, and realize the reflection staring back feels unfamiliar. It's not that you hate yourself. You just can't find the man you used to be before the constant explaining, the pleasing, the walking on eggshells. You used to have edges. Now you're all smooth corners. That moment, the quiet disorientation, is the start of awakening. Because pain, when you stop running from it, becomes clarity. Will Smith once said in an interview after everything went public, "Love makes you do crazy things." Maybe. But here's what love should never make you do: forget your own worth. Here's the thing. Emotional intensity tricks men. They confuse chaos with passion, drama with depth, sacrifice with devotion. The more turbulent the relationship, the more they convince themselves it must mean something. It doesn't. It just means you've become addicted to emotional noise. The truth is, when a man stops needing chaos, he starts becoming powerful again, because clarity thrives in silence. Detachment isn't about being cold or heartless. It's about remembering that your emotions are yours, no one else's responsibility to manage or manipulate. It's self-possession, not distance. It's knowing when to walk away without needing a villain to justify it. Most men fear detachment because they think it means loneliness. It doesn't. It means returning home to yourself. That's what Leonardo DiCaprio mastered, not relationships, but self-boundaries. He doesn't owe anyone an explanation. He doesn't collapse under external pressure. He's built a life on emotional independence where attention doesn't equal validation. You might not like his choices, but you can't deny the discipline behind them. See, real detachment is emotional discipline. It's being able to sit with discomfort without reaching for distraction. It is being able to care for someone deeply and still walk away when it costs you your self-respect. That's the part no one teaches men. Because here's what most of us were trained to believe: that love is sacrifice, that a real man endures, forgives, and stays no matter what. That's not love, that's programming, and that programming keeps men emotionally bankrupt. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Apply that to emotion. If it doesn't bring peace, it's not love. If it doesn't make you stronger, it's not growth. If it constantly costs you your dignity, it's not worth it. Here's what awakening looks like in practice. You start saying less. You stop arguing for your worth. You begin observing your triggers instead of reacting to them. You choose silence over validation. And slowly, the noise fades. That's when attraction returns, not just from others, but from life itself. Because nothing draws respect like a man who doesn't beg for it. At some point, every man faces a choice: stay addicted to the emotional roller coaster or learn to build his own ground. The second path is slower, quieter, and lonelier at first, but it leads to power that can't be taken away. When you finally stop seeking approval, something strange happens. You start seeing women differently. They're no longer trophies or saviors, they're mirrors. Some will reflect your strength, others will expose your weakness. Both are valuable, because each encounter reveals the part of you that still needs work. Detachment doesn't kill desire. It purifies it. It removes the desperation and leaves behind choice. You still feel attraction, still feel emotion, but now you decide how to express it, not your insecurity. That's what mature masculinity is: the ability to experience intensity without being consumed by it. And here's the paradox: the moment you stop trying to hold on, people start holding on to you. Because calm confidence is magnetic. When your world no longer revolves around someone else, your gravity strengthens. Look at the men who inspire you, the ones who walk into a room and command it without saying a word. They've all learned the same lesson. Control starts with what you done, it react to. Their silence isn't arrogance, It's self-control polished by pain. You can't fake that kind of composure. You earn it by losing yourself once, then deciding never again. That's the point of awakening. You stop chasing intensity and start embodying it. You stop craving validation and start radiating certainty. You stop being defined by who stays or leaves and start defining yourself by how deeply you understand your own mind. Because a man who can master his emotions doesn't fear losing anyone. He knows that everything he truly needs he already carries within. In the next part, we'll go even deeper into the masculine reframe. How to desire without attachment, how to love without losing power, and how to turn ego from your cage into your compass. Because love, at its highest form, isn't about finding someone who completes you, it's about becoming someone who can't be diminished. Most men think power means control, but real power, the kind that lasts, comes from presence. When you can stand fully in who you are, without bending to be liked or shrinking to be accepted, that's power. It's not loud, it's not forceful, it's steady. And when you bring that kind of presence into love, everything changes. Here's the thing. Love isn't supposed to test your manhood. It's supposed to reflect it. If every connection leaves you drained, confused, or over-explaining, you're not in love, you're in emotional negotiation. Let's be clear. The goal isn't to win in relationships. It's to stop playing games that cost you your self-respect. Think about Elon Musk again. People see the rockets and the chaos, but what's underneath all that is obsession, not just for creation, but for control. His personal life often mirrors that tension. The same drive that builds empires can also destroy peace. The masculine paradox. The same intensity that makes you great can also undo you if it's not directed inward first. So the reframe begins here. You can't master relationships until you master your internal state. Because every relationship is just a reflection of how you relate to yourself. A man at peace doesn't need reassurance. He listens, not to win, but to understand. He gives not to prove, but to express. And when it's time to walk away, he doesn't announce it. He simply goes, quietly, like someone who knows his worth doesn't need an audience. That's emotional leadership, and it's rare. Ego gets a bad reputation, but it's not the villain. Your ego is the inner guard that keeps your boundaries intact. Without it, you become agreeable, moldable, breakable. With too much of it, you become unreachable. So the goal isn't to kill the ego. It's to educate it, to train it to protect, not perform. Here's how. 1. Stop chasing validation. Every time you do something just to be seen, you teach yourself that invisibility equals failure. But invisibility can be strength. Not every part of you is meant to be understood. 2. Redefine love as choice, not need. Need says, I can't live without you. Choice says, I'd love to live with you. One suffocates, the other breathes. 3. Learn to sit in silence. Most men rush to fill quiet spaces with noise texts, reassurance, explanations, but silence is where power grows. When you can sit in it without anxiety, you stop being manipulated by attention. 4. Stay dangerous quietly, not in violence or arrogance, but in self-respect. The kind of danger that comes from knowing your life is full, your path is clear, and your peace isn't negotiable. Look back at Johnny Depp's story. After years of chaos, he didn't rebuild through revenge. He rebuilt through stillness. He let time speak. That's how strength moves slow, grounded, unprovable. When you master these principles, you start noticing something subtle. People treat you differently. They sense the shift, the calm authority, the refusal to argue small things, the patience that can't be faked. That's attraction at its purest, because what truly draws others isn't charm or looks, it's gravity. And gravity only forms when you stop orbiting everyone else. Love, in its healthiest form, isn't two halves completing each other. It's two wholes walking side by side, each person strong enough to stand alone, but wise enough to choose together. That's the masculine power the world rarely teaches: the ability to be soft without being weak, devoted without being dependent, loving without losing self. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Waste no more time arguing about what a good man should be. Be one." Apply that here. Stop debating what love should feel like. Be the kind of man who can handle love without collapsing under it. A man who leads with clarity, not emotion. Who gives freely, but never from emptiness. Who doesn't chase being understood because he's already at peace with who he is. That's when ego stops being a cage and becomes a compass. It no longer says, look at me. It says, remember who you are. And when you remember who you are, you realize something profound. You never actually lost yourself in love. You just forgot to stay awake while loving. So the real power isn't in avoiding desire. It's in meeting desire with awareness. Loving fiercely, but walking away gracefully. Feeling deeply, but never abandoning yourself. Because when you master that balanced desire without dependence, love without loss, you become untouchable. Not because you don't care, but because you finally care in the right direction. So here's the real question. When was the last time you confused love with validation? Drop it in the comments, just write, I'm stepping out. Let us see how many men are done losing themselves to what was never meant to own them. Remember that man we talked about in the beginning, the one who faded without even noticing? He didn't need to win her back. He needed to remember himself. Because the real lesson isn't about women. It's about power. Not control over anyone else. Control over your own mind. The moment you stop begging for validation, you start feeling that quiet fire again. And when a man finds that nothing outside him can touch him. So if this hit you somewhere real, don't just scroll. Subscribe not for motivation, but for mastery. Because this is where men remember who they are.